Hello and welcome. Today I'm gonna take the same simple agent which we have demonstrated earlier and then add some tools to it. And that tool is nothing but a simple function which we will add into our code and call it as part of the agent framework. So you'll use the previously created sample. So let me open my Visual Studio Code where we have written this. So let's just gonna change a little bit here. So I'll say from agent framework import agent. Now, because we are going to use tools, I also need one more thing. I need something called tool. So this is also part of this. So I'll say tool. So I've got this. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this. So I basically have the same client from the util. So let me put it over here. I've got this. So you remember that this util has contains the code here to initialize this API key, base URL, and all this stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and then get this copied. So it's gonna go ahead and get this make it available. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna go ahead and I'll say agent tool. I just give a name agent tool. Now to define a tool in this agent framework, you need to either get something from outside or define by yourself. So I'll say create a function called get. Remember that it was giving me wrong date, so I'll say get date. And then this is going to return me a string. So I have to say that str. So now this function is created. So it's going to get the current date, and then it is going to get me the date in the format which I have mentioned over here, right? So that's what this function is. But to for you to be able to call it from an agent, you need this little identifier called tool on top at the rate tool. So this annotation will help you configure that with agent. Now, when you create an agent, you also have another parameter called tools. Here is where you can send a couple of tools one after another. So we just send the get date which we created on top of that. Now, if we just call it what is the day today, but let me show you without using a tool. First, we don't have any tool. So we come back into this command prompt where we were running it earlier. I just run that same thing. It's going to go ahead and get me the wrong date, which is April 27, 2014. Now I enable this tool, and then it is going to go ahead and get me the right date, because now it can calculate the system date and give me the right date. Now let me show you what exactly is happening. But to show that, there is something very interesting which the agent framework comes up with called DevUI. So it is kind of like a way to see what is going on behind the scene. So let me add a few lines of code here. So if I add, I'll always run it in DevUI. Let's assume that. So if I say that from agent framework dot dev UI as import serve. So if I say that, and then serve, and then I pass the entities here, which is my agent, and the host is to Okay. So now what happens every time I run this application, it's going to go ahead and open it in the, sorry, it's going to go ahead and run this um, in the browser, little browser, and show me things over there, right? So instead of me calling the async IO, I'm not going to call this anymore. I just hide that, right? So it's going to open the in the dev UI. I just open it here, right? You can see that if I also now can run it from here. Now this will give me a little interface to call from. So let me do that here. And if I say Python 01 agent simple, open in browser, and this is the browser which gets opened. Now you can see that this is the browser which you get to see. Now I don't have anything, so I can say what is the date today? If I ask this question, this is a little playground. Now you can see that here it shows you set of things happening. The first one, the agent response is created when it is in progress, and then function call incorporate. So it's calling get date function to get the date, and then result is complete. Output item added, and you get the correct date. Now if I ask, now in this also you see in the section tools, it is going to call get that tool. That's the tool it is going to call. Now if I call cost capital of Netherlands, and if I say that, it is calling the Amsterdam, but right now at this point in time, when this happens, it doesn't need to, sorry, this one, it doesn't need to call any tool. So you can see that right now it is not going to call any tool because there is no tool which does. But if I say that get capital kind of tool, which can get me the capital, right? So it can get me the capital also if I want to also call my function instead of the large language model memory. So you can see that it basically shows you all the. So let me clear this up. So let me show you again. What is the capital of India? If I do that, we don't see any tool call happening because there is no tool required. It is directly coming from its memory, right? So it's basically get trained. So it's a obvious thing. So it is coming from that memory. So this is now basically calling, not calling a function, but when I say what is the date today, then it's going to call my get date function because they understand that is more relevant, and it calls the get date function to get me the current date, which is always right. So this is what the tool calling looks like in an agent framework kind of concept where you can get things pretty quickly. And this is the true agent, right? Previous one is not true agent. This is the